right? So let's answer some of these questions. When the job assignee changes, do they receive an email notification? Yes. So if somebody's out sick and there's a job, right, that you need to change the assignee to, then I highly suggest you choose a new person in the team. Once that new person is chosen, they will automatically get a notification, whether it's Inbox Plus or through their email if they have that checked on. Remember, we talked about personal notifications. You can check mark or uncheck email notifications. For sure, Inbox Plus, I always suggest you have those on. But yes, there will be a notification sent to your team member that says, hey, you have a new task assigned to you. How do I make a new client turn into a recurring client automatically after the first year? All right, so we took a look at job recurrences, right? So you can have job recurrences happen right away if you say, let's say today's the 7th of the month, and in a few days it's going to be the 10th, right? If I want the first months to happen now, I will choose today's date as the start date, and I'm just going to say every 10th of the month, have this repeat over and over. So you can create a recurrence right away so it can generate in 3 days of the first job recurrence. And that way it's going to permanently stay as a recurring item over and over again on a yearly basis or on a monthly basis, however you need to have it. But we did cover that in depth earlier, so hopefully that has become clear. Can I automate custom email responses when clients complete specific stages in a pipeline? Yes, absolutely. So remember, if you want client communication to happen, all you have to do is automate it. You add an action that says email the client this template, and I want that to happen right after they hit submit on the organizer, which ideally is the next stage, right? So we saw how easy it is to do that. All you have to do is make sure you have the templates that you need and work on the templates to be able to tailor this as much as you can. Next question. Will editing a pipeline update all active pipelines or just new ones? All right, that's a great question. So as you edit a pipeline, it's just going to edit that one pipeline. Obviously, each service that you offer is going to have completely different stages, completely different actions. And in this case, what I can advise you is that let's say you have somebody on stage 1 and you modify stage 7. That modification is going to be live as soon as you hit save. So it won't really affect your client because they're still on stage 1. Once they hit stage 7, they'll get that updated version of the stage. Okay. If they are already on stage number 8 and you modify stage 7, then they pretty much will not get that update. You'd have to do a manual modification if you happen to have changed a couple of steps along the way before the client or after the client went through that stage. So when you click on save, the changes are live. So just remember that and be careful. You don't want to delete things that you don't need to delete. The next question is, will clients be able to fill out the organizer on their phones? Does the app work on all phones? So yes, like for example, an organizer is compatible with any browser and it's compatible with the phone app, whether it's an Android or whether it's an iOS. That app is available for both platforms. Unfortunately, if there's a different platform that is used outside of Android and iOS, it's not going to be available, unfortunately. So I hope that this sets more clarity on, some of the questions that have come up and some of the topics that we've covered, because honestly, some of these topics can be fairly overwhelming. I covered a whole bunch of items. There's more to cover. There's more advanced webinars that you could take a look at to go more into depth when it comes to automation. I gave you the basics. I gave you some real examples of how I have worked with clients and truly set up the first few stages. What I showed you is a real, um, you know, live example of how I've helped a lot of clients set up their automations, right? All they needed to do is tailor their engagement letters, tailor their organizers, tailor the emails that they want to send, tailor the messages that need to be communicated with the client, right? So I highly suggest you take your time and really brainstorm what actions you feel are important to you and your firm. Okay. All right. I have a few more questions that I'd love to cover because you probably have these same questions right now. So let's take a look at these. Can I set up automations to handle recurring invoices and payments? For example, a deposit plus a recurring monthly invoice. Well, in a pipeline, if you set the action to be an invoice, because you can say when somebody hits stage 7, invoice them. It will have you choose a template, and that template is going to have a predetermined price. My recommendation is if you have a set price for all clients, if you're going to charge your clients $200 every single time, then yes, you can automate that happening. Addressing the monthly, the deposit, you can actually have your client be invoiced immediately after they sign their engagement letter. They will have a deposit request immediately sent over to them. So that's really easy to do. You'll find that in the settings of setting up your template. So please take a look into that a little bit further. But going back to the automation. Um, your answer is probably no. I don't charge my clients $200 every single time. It will vary. Instead of having that automated, you probably want to create a task that tells your team member, okay, invoice the client according to the services that we provided. So that way you can invoice the client that way. Um, and I'll give you a quick example because this is actually a really common question that I get, especially when it comes to invoicing. So if I go to my invoicing stage, because I do have a stage on here called invoicing. So we have our invoicing here. Let's pretend like this task here says, hi team member, create an invoice for the client, right? And then request their signature. So when I go to the pipeline, let's say that this client actually is on that stage, okay? If they are on this stage, your team member is going to receive this task, right? This task is going to be assigned. I know it shows unassigned for me, but it will be assigned in your case. Right now, it was assigned to Catherine, and Catherine needs to, uh, invoice the client. So the first thing that she's going to do is go ahead and click on New. Go ahead and click on Invoice. Remember, you have to create a template. Our help center can help you create a template. We have an academy course called Invoicing that you can take so you can get a rundown on how to build out these templates. So I'll go ahead and do this template and it'll predetermine this price, but you can keep it at 0 or not. I'm just going to say $458. That's what I'm going to charge this client, and I'm going to hit create. And notice that it linked that invoice to this job. And I'm going to hit complete here. because I already invoiced them. And I'm going to hit save. It's not going to move to the next stage because this auto move icon says, well, I had two items to fulfill, a task and a payment. The task was already fulfilled. The payment is pending. Once a client pays this invoice, it will move to the next stage. Now, like I mentioned, I don't recommend you automate an invoice, because if you automate an invoice, it means that you're going to charge your client the same amount every single time. And probably that is not your goal, right? And we do have send invoice on here, and it says which one of these do you want to use as a template? And that might not be ideal. Maybe it's ideal for, I don't know, bookkeeping, that you always bill them $500 a month. That can be ideal, but not for like individual kinds of services. I hope that makes a little bit more sense. And that answers that kind of invoicing question. Again, invoicing course available in TaxDome Academy. Highly suggest to take that before you actually, um, go through invoicing in TaxDome. Can you show how to attach documents to workflows or automations for client review and signatures? Yes. So that was really easy that we did right now. We created an invoice and it was attached to the job, right? So I want to now, I'm going to go back to my pipeline and say that I need a signature on a document, right? So you do that signature process through TaxStone Printer 2.0. As we saw in the software before, you can request a signature and you can automatically link that to this job. If you forgot to link that, you're going to click on link, you're going to look for documents, and then you're going to look for whatever document you sent for signature. So let's say it was this document. I'm going to hit save, and it should give you a document. Here it is. So this document's going to be here, and it will show you that it requires a signature. This one I haven't added a signature request, but this is how easy it is for you to add documents that require a signature, and you'll see the status on here, whether it's pending or they have signed. It'll say signed on here, but this is it. You go to link and you link the document that you have a required signature for, and you can link as many documents as you can or as you want. And if they all require a signature, you will see a status here that says pending, right? So that's how it looks like to add a document to this job that you are requesting a signature on, right? If you have questions on how to do signature requests, remember the help center, you type in signature and you will have step-by-step videos on how to request signatures, right? Not only signatures through the portal, but signatures through TaxDome Windows app, which generates that printer called TaxDome 2.0, in which you can print directly from your tax software into TaxDome. All right, so that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. I really love to address these kinds of questions because they're very, very common and they are likely to come across your table. Can I send text notifications to clients along with email updates? Yes, you can. Remember that you are able to use Twilio as a third-party provider for SMS messaging. So all you'd have to do is automate the message, right? And what you want to do is, create that template that you want to send. And when you create that template in TaxDome, you attach it to whatever stage you want to send, and you will be able to automate that. Now, I'm talking about emailing, and I'm talking about sending a message. But when it comes to, for example, an SMS message, that type of communication cannot be automated. So you can automate messages, okay? Messages through the TaxDome messaging section. It's a little bit confusing sometimes for clients to understand what SMS messaging is and TaxDome internal chat messaging is. Again, SMS messaging is text messages through the Twilio provider that shoots a text message to the client. And messaging through the internal chat is your client being able to chat with you back and forth inside of the portal, whether it's their phone or whether it's on a browser, right? So specifically, messages can be automated, but not text messages. I want to get that clear. All right. So the next question here is, how do I update job due dates based on new conditions? All right. Um, for example, if somebody has to go through an extension and their due date needs to change to, I don't know, October 15th or whatever it is, the job itself, remember, gives us those dates. You just click on the date and you change it. That's how easy it is. You open the job, look at the due date, and change it. You can change it manually for any job on an individual basis. If they all say April 15th, 2025, you can change them for anyone at any moment. So it's highly editable. Can we still automate the workflow and choose not to send an email to the client? Yes, exactly. We did that earlier when we were testing dragging and dropping the job to different stages. You'll have check marks that say, hey, do you want these things to happen? And you can just uncheck them if you don't want to send the email, if you don't want to send them certain information, or if you don't want to generate tasks for your team. So you will always have the ability to do that.